share this. Let's see here. Copy. URL. YouTube. Okay. All right. Okay, it's just me. All right. Okay, let's see here. Oh, so there were 3 people. Okay, still a bit early. Let's have a look here. Okay. Five. Okay. Oh, okay. Hmm. Okay. All right. My head's a lot shinier than I expected, but oh well. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, I see there are 8 people logged on, but I can't see who they are. So if you're out there in YouTube land in Kuwait, let us know. Say hi or say something, so I know that it's not just me. Can everyone hear me and see me okay? How about I start with that? Okay. All right, Omar. Hi, Professor. Okay. Pokemon lover, yes. Okay, great. Hossein, hello, Professor. Hi, Hossein. Okay. Okay, yes, we can see you. Okay, great. And can you hear me as well? Is it clear? Oh, thank you. I did shave my head last night, so maybe that's what it is. Pokemon lover. Okay. Okay. All right, Zahra. Okay, great. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, we're up to 11 now, which is great. Okay, Pokemon lover. Okay, I won't do that. It reminds me when someone tells you, don't think of a purple elephant. What's the first thing you do? You think of a purple elephant, right? So just some advice for the future. Okay, some creepy dude. Oh, wonderful. We have a creepy dude. Okay. There always has to be one creepy dude, at least. Okay, Layla's here. Great. Just out of curiosity, so far the turnout's really good. I find when I do this for my UNIV class, there weren't that many students tuned in, but when I do this for a literature class, the turnout's really great, and I think people really enjoy it. Okay, Shema, great. Great to see you. Okay. Yeah, Layla, it's this happened last year. You don't have to create a channel. It's if you have a Google account, you automatically have a YouTube account. I mean, if you have a Gmail address, you have a YouTube account, and you just have to click on a button that says add channel and you're done. But now, yes, I can see your comments. Great. Okay. Just out of curiosity, while we're waiting to see if anyone else shows up, is anyone not at home right now? I'm wondering because you can do this from anywhere. That's one of the things I love about it. You could be at the avenues chilling with your friends, and you could come on your phone and participate. Or if you're, I don't know, in a car somewhere, not driving, of course, but if you're in a taxi, let's say, you're waiting for your friend or something like that, waiting at the doctor's office at 8 p.m., you could join in. So is anyone out there not at home, or is everybody at home right now? I usually do this from my office, but I was hungry, so Khadija driving. Okay. Well, you should probably get someone to drive for you or park if you want to participate. Okay, Layla's at home. Okay, and that's so is Hossein. Zahra's at home. Okay. Fatma, okay. All right. Okay, so we have one person who's not at home. I'm at home chilling in bed. Oh, I will be doing that very soon. Okay. Don't you guys stay up really late during Ramadan, like even later than usual? I'm kind of surprised to see people who are already in bed, although that's one of the things I like about this is, as I said, you can do it anywhere. Okay. Okay, Shayma's here. Great. Okay. Okay. So it looks like there are 18 people who've joined up. I will slowly get started. So really, I don't have that much to say, to be honest, because oh, okay, you're okay. Okay. Yeah, I came home and I ate. I sort of accidentally fasted today for a few hours, and I came home and ate. And but I thought to myself, I cannot eat too much because I'm a YouTube celebrity now. So, but after this video, I can go lie down. Okay. All right. So, really, this is your opportunity to ask any questions you may have about really anything. I think most people will be wondering about the final exam. So why don't I talk a little bit about it, and then in the meantime, you guys can formulate your questions, and really they can be anything. Sometimes people like to ask silly questions, but chances are, if you have a question about the exam or about the course or anything, it's not going to be just you. Other people will share your question. So I haven't written the exam yet, but what I'm thinking is it'll have probably 2 or 3 parts. Part one will be like the midterm. It'll consist of terms and definitions, And all the terms and definitions you need to know are on Moodle. So if it's something I did not include on Moodle, I'm not going to ask you to know it. Like if there's a term we discussed in class or something like that, or that you think is important, and I don't have it in Moodle like highlighted, then I'm not going to ask you to know that. So that should make your life a little easier. Okay. I don't have definitions always, but you can find definitions pretty much anywhere. Okay, so yeah, so that's part one. A lot like the midterm. Layla asks, no terms from the midterm part. That is correct. The exam covers content only after the midterm. So the terms will be only the stuff we covered after the midterm. If you want to use examples from the stuff we read before the midterm, so Aristophanes, for example, or any of the plays from antiquity, you can use those. But as far as the terminology goes, it's only after the midterm. HFS CFC asks, do we have to know where the terms come from? No, because in this case, the terms are pretty general, like a term like ideology or a term like catchphrase, just to give two random examples. Those are terms that you can apply to just about anything we talked about after the midterm. Are we going to have choices like the midterm? Yes. I don't know what the proportion of choices will be, but you will have choice. So you might get, for example, I might give you 10 terms and I'll ask you to define 7 of them, something like that. So you will have some choice. Should we be able, okay, Sharuk asks, should we be able to summarize everything we've watched like each episode? One thing I was thinking about including, and I'm not 100% sure about this, and you might laugh, but I thought it would be honestly easy marks for people who are in class, is a small section out of 10 marks. It would be matching. So I'd give you the plot of an episode in one sentence, and you have to tell me what show it comes from, something like that. So for example, Stephanie or a girl runs her uncle's car into the kitchen. And then, if you were in class, you'd know that's Full House. Okay, Layla likes that idea, so does Zahra. I thought that'd be kind of, it will, excuse me, it won't be a huge portion. I don't want to insult people's intelligence, but I think that might be worth a small chunk of the grade, maybe towards the end. So I might have something like that. But no, I'm not going to ask you to summarize an episode or anything like that. Okay, not sure what that was. Okay, so part one would be definitions. We'll be, we'll be fasting, so not much intelligence, Professor. Okay. Well, as far as part one, okay, as far as part one goes, like I said, I think this is pretty easy, especially if you were in class. If you missed one class, that's okay. But if for the most part you were in class and paying attention, you should be fine for part one. That's the terms and definitions. And if I do have that sort of fun part three, it would be a very small part where I might ask you to match the episode plot with the show or something like that. Part two, to answer your question, Hossein, will there be long essay questions? Yes and no. It depends on what your definition of long is. So I will probably give you something like 5 prompts. So blah, 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 discuss. And then I'll ask you to give me an intelligent response of a page or something like that. Use that as an opportunity to show me what you know, show me that you can not just memorize terms and things like that, but that you can synthesize and bring together what you've learned in this class, what we've learned over the last 4 months. So part one will be terms and definitions. Part two will be probably one medium-ish response, maybe a page, something like that. And depending on my mood, part three would be the matching, where you match the episode synopsis with the show. But definitely the first 2 parts will be there. Okay, it looks like we're up to 23 viewers. Most people are lurkers, so let's see if there's anyone, if anyone wants to ask the next question. How many responses in part 2? Layla asks choices. I haven't decided, but yeah, you will have choice. So you might get something like, even if I give you only 3 options, I'll ask you to choose 1 out of 3 prompts, something like that. Your mood will be good by that day. Well, as people here say, inshallah, we'll see. But I certainly hope so. Okay, so part 1, terms and definitions. I'll post this stuff after just to refresh your memory. Part 1 will be like the midterm, terms and definitions. Part 2 will be like a medium response to a prompt or a question. And if I'm in a good mood, part 3 will be very short. You'll match the episode synopsis with the show. Mm. Layla asks, how many marks on the essay thing? How many marks in part 1? I haven't decided on the distribution yet, but it's roughly 50-50. So if terms aren't your strong point, but writing long, thoughtful responses is, it'll balance out. If writing long, thoughtful responses isn't your strong point, but learning definitions and terms, then it'll even out. And if I have the part 3, it'll be very short. So maybe 10% or something like that. Are you going to relate some of the questions, Shema asks, to the first things we learned about old and new comedy? I'm not going to ask you what is old comedy or new comedy. I think those are things that I really hope you know by now, and these are very fundamental and simple distinctions. I won't ask you that, but you might get a question that will ask you, and again, you have a choice here, but one of the options you have might ask you to combine what you know from our discussion in the first half of the semester to what we learn now. So, for example, can you relate the conventions of old comedy or new comedy to the present day, something like that? But that would only be one possibility. Layla, bonus question. Maybe, yeah, sure. Well, again, it depends on my mood. But I like, if I can come up with a bonus question, I like giving them. HFSCFC asks, can we answer 2 questions that are possibly related to each other? Yeah, I don't see why not. Okay, for part 2, if our answer to the question happens to be short, can we answer 2 questions? Maybe. We'll see. I haven't decided if I want to give you. I haven't decided if I want you to write 1 longer response or 2 shorter ones. We'll see. It sort of depends on a number of factors and how much time we have and things like that. But in either case, I would want you to answer the question specifically. So using examples from the texts, and when I say text, I mean TV show, film, novel, all that stuff. Use specific examples from the class in your answers. So whether it's a long or short response, I want to see that. So no, you don't have to memorize all the stuff we watched or read, but you should be able to talk about at least some of the episodes in some detail. Okay, we're up to 21 viewers now. A much better turnout than my live stream on Saturday. But that was for Univ 110. I don't think they care quite as much. Okay. All right, so who's next? Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so I got 4 questions in a row. Okay, so I will go in the order I received them. What time is the exam going to be? Um, I will double check this tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure I asked our assistant to reserve the big classroom 205 from 1 to 4 or 2 to 4. So I think we have it for at least 2 hours. We might have it for 3 hours. So why don't we say 2 p.m. on Thursday, this Thursday, the 24th, in the big room? Okay, so that's one answer. Shema, how can we never watch Friends? How can we never watch lots of stuff? I wanted to show BoJack Horseman is a great show. I watched a YouTube video just last night about how the BoJack Horseman, which is a great, not even sure you can call it a sitcom. It's an animated show. It's drama, it's comedy, all that. But it's also very self-aware. The main character is a horse who used to star in a show like Full House. And it's a lot more, it's a lot more intelligent and funnier than it sounds. There are plenty of other shows we could have watched. If we had more time, maybe we could have watched Friends. But as you know, there's the Seinfeld Friends divide, and I'm definitely on the Seinfeld side. So there's that too. Can we have a peek exam? Just 2 seconds. Well, it's not even ready. Even I don't know what the exam looks like because I haven't written it yet. Okay. Regarding, yeah, very briefly regarding the responses, the papers, do we have to get your approval on what we're going to write? Yes, I think at the very least you should tell me this is what I'm writing on, because remember that one paper, one response, if you're doing two, must be on something that we watch together in class. Okay, so if you give me two responses that are on shows we didn't talk about in class, then that might be a problem. So even if it's just to say, I'm writing about gender in Friends and blah, blah, blah in Seinfeld, like that's fine because we watched Seinfeld in class and Friends we didn't. You can also write both responses on stuff we watched in class. That's okay too. Ahmed Beta, hello. Okay, BoJack is depressing. Yes, and that's one of the reasons people either like it or dislike it. So if you don't like depressing shows, you won't like BoJack Horseman. But it is, and again, it does problematize the notion of comedy, right? Because it's a very amusing and entertaining and witty show, but it's also very heartfelt and sometimes difficult to watch, even though it's animated. Doesn't he try to kill himself? Yeah, I think he does. He's like the sort of tortured actor, former actor. Layla asks, can we send a first draft of a response and get some feedback in the next couple of days? That's pretty much all I've been doing for the last few days is reading and commenting on drafts of responses and papers. So yeah, you might have to be patient, but I'm getting through them as quickly as I can. But I encourage you to do so, if for no other reason than to know that what you're working on is okay. Sharuk asks, for the paper, should we refer to one thing from class or more? I think at least one thing is fine. If you're comfortable talking about stuff we didn't discuss in class, then that's fine. But I think you should include at least one text that we discussed in class if you're doing a longer paper. And again, just talk to me. I mean, some of you have some interesting ideas, and you do things that even I haven't thought of. So, okay, Nawaf, are you available tomorrow at 4? I think so. I think we have a meeting. Yeah, tomorrow I have a meeting with a bunch of us have a meeting, I mean, with the Office of the Provost at 2. So I think at 4 I should be there, yeah. Okay. It's funny, I often get no questions and then suddenly there are about 6 questions in a row. Zahra asks, are the questions on Moodle similar to the questions in part 2 of the exam? Yeah, I think so, except the ones on the exam won't be as demanding. I'm not expecting you to blow me away or rewrite our understanding of comedy in a short answer that you wrote in 40 minutes or 30 minutes. I know your time is limited and you're watching the clock at the same time, but it will be like the questions on Moodle, but more manageable and shorter. Will this exam be shorter? I think, yeah, that in yes and no. I think there will be fewer parts, but I might ask you to write more. Okay, so that depends. I mean, I think some people will be done faster than others, but I think on the whole, there are no sight passages, so that probably speeds things up. Uh, and we won't be having any coffee. That is true. But let me ask you: Are you reminding your other professors of that? Because this can't be the only exam you have, right? Are the terms from part one with us? Well, they're always with me, but I will not be asking you what is old comedy or what is a fish out of water, anything like that. But again, these are terms that you might use yourself in your discussions. Okay? I just ask for consistency, Layla, that's all. Noaf asks, as for the papers, the Seinfeld prompt, it is okay to take references from the plays we read and add it to the paper. Okay. I'm not exactly sure what you mean, so lest I misunderstand you, please either send me an email or Nawaf or come see me tomorrow. Zahra, the exam is only 3 parts, right? It might be, for all intents and purposes, it'll be 2 parts. So the one part will be definitions, one part will be longer response. And if I feel like it, there might be a fun part, not worth a lot, where you get to match a short plot synopsis with the name of the show. Okay, Omar asks, so what do you think is the best way to study for the final? That's a good question. The So I have some good news and some bad news, and I often tell my 101 and 102 students this. The the bad news is that except for the terms, I don't think you can study much for this. Um, I mean, unless you were watching or have watched everything in class that you missed if you weren't there and you caught up with the discussion and all that kind of stuff, there's really not much else you can do. There's no textbook to study for. You can't cram on for this exam. You might be able to cram for the definitions or the terms, but that's about it. You can't do much else. So I would say review the terms, and they're on Moodle. The sort of the important points, and at this point, yeah, you should be able to talk about at least a couple of episodes or texts in some detail. Apart from that, there's really not much else you can do, to be honest. I mean, you could spend the next couple of days rewatching the episodes we watched and the films, and going through our notes. But there's really no substitute for having been there in class and paying attention during the discussions. Only about Asma asks only about the episodes of the shows you watched in class. Yeah, it's the terms and the definitions which came up in class, and the stuff we watched together. That's it. Do we have to memorize the character of the film and the TV shows? No, you don't have to. But again, it's good to know enough so that you can talk about, let's say, an episode of Full House or whatever, and use examples from that show to support an answer you might have. So you don't have to remember the name of the daughter or the dad or anything like that, but remember the main, plot points. What were the important or the significant things we talked about? Asma, best class ever. Well, I'm glad you liked it, and I enjoyed it too, especially watching the TV. I wish the semester were longer and I hadn't gotten sick or anything like that, because there were other things I wanted to watch as well. Okay. Huh. Okay. Okay, great. I'm glad Pokemon Lover you like the plays. I thought, I mean, Terrence isn't the funniest guy in the world, but I still genuinely enjoy Aristophanes. I think his plays are can be very amusing, very funny, and Menander's play, The Girl from Samos, it's short and it's very readable. And I thought Plautus was amusing as well. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Beast K-pop. Can you repeat what are the three parts that we are having in the exam? Okay, so I will do this one more time, and but I will post this on Moodle, so in case anyone misses it, because I think I answered this question about 4 times. So for sure, there will be at least 2 parts. Part one will be definitions and terms, just like the midterm had, and part two will be more like a short, or actually more like medium length answers. So I might give you one. I might give you a list of 5 prompts or 5 questions, and ask you to answer one or two of them in some length, and you'll have to use examples and details from the text that we read or that we watched in class. If I feel like it, if I'm in a good mood and all that, part three will be very short. It won't count for too much. And there I will ask you to match the title of a show with the very short plot synopsis. Please be in a good mood. Okay, well, I hope to be. We'll see. Okay, and it won't be. I mean, it won't be a long part. That one, it'll be very short. So just again, give you a very silly example. Um, the plot will be one sentence. You know, a young girl crashes her uncle's car into the house. What show was that from? Something really, okay, again, this is really stupid, right? But it is comedy after all. Um, okay, what else do we have? Zahra asks, will it be available on Thursday after or before the exam? Yeah, well, after for sure. And before, I guess I'll be there maybe around 1 or something like that. But after the exam, for sure. Layla asks, can you give an example of a prompt? Hmm. Why don't I? It actually, a lot of the questions on Moodle are very similar to the prompts. What I might do later when I post a summary of this after is give you an example of what a prompt might look like. It's a lot like the questions you have for the final, for the responses, but shorter. And so stuff that's broad and you can sort of go in whatever direction you want. It will be much easier, of course, than a response. I'm not expecting for anyone to write anything that brilliant or polished or anything like that. I know you don't have time, so I'm just looking for to see if you can make some connections of your own, really. Similar to what we had on Legally Blonde. Yes, something like that. Yeah. So I think it took me a moment to remember. I had asked you guys once to write after we watched Legally Blonde to spend some time, and I asked you to write, I think, a paragraph or something like that, making connections between Legally Blonde and some of the other texts that we had read, especially the plays from the ancient world. Can you exclude the material before the midterm? There isn't going to be any, really. I mean, again, it's never a bad idea to remember this stuff, like what is old and new comedy, what's the difference, or what's a fish out of water, right? These are things that I think you will use in your everyday life and other classes, but I'm not going to quiz you on that for the exam. Everything you need to know will be after the midterm. But you can use examples and illustrations from stuff we read before the midterm. Do we have to know what ideology means? You can get away with not knowing it. That's fine. But it is one of those really important words that comes up. And my students who took 415, the theory and criticism class with me, in the fall will know this. It's one of those concepts that comes up a lot in not just literary studies, but as we've seen, television studies, cultural studies in general. What ideologies, and it's a very useful concept, and it's one that you can use. I mean, you can really talk about ideology with any text or any TV show, and we did that with Legally Blonde, and to a lesser extent with Big Bang Theory. So no, you don't have to know what it means, but you can bet that it will be one of the terms in part one, almost certainly. But if you don't know that one and you know everything else, you'll be okay. Asma asks, are the exact episodes we watched mentioned on Moodle? Yes, I posted a list on Moodle. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, in fact, you're not the first one to ask. I had a student ask me last week. So I posted for those who want to review, or if you missed 1 or 2 weeks in some cases, and you want to know what we watched, because it's kind of weird and not that useful to read discussions on shows and episodes you didn't watch. Yes, there is a list of everything we watched. So, and if it's a show, I included the season and episode number as well as the title. And you can find this stuff anywhere. So if for some reason you want to watch Full House again, not that I recommend it, but some people like it, you can find, just Google it, right? You can find this stuff on Google torrents and so on. Sometimes even YouTube has these episodes. Okay, touche. Yeah, okay. But yeah, there's some people, I'm sure there were people who missed the odd week or two, and they would, for example, they want to know what episode of Big Bang Theory did we watch, and that'll make a lot of sense for them. So yes, there is a list on Moodle. Will you give grades for attendance? I don't give grades for attendance, but there is a participation component in this class. So generally the way it works is if you were there most of the time and you contributed sometimes or a lot, and I liked your contributions, that will help you out. If, however, you were there most of the time and you didn't speak at all, it won't affect you. So typically the attendance, the a participation grade can only help you. It won't hurt you. Shema, what if one of the questions like I Love Lucy are all about ideology? Can I answer them with what certain ideology I think they talk about? Because sometimes it's obvious. Yeah, the if you get a question on the exam, again, it's I know because I told you guys in your responses and your papers to try to avoid saying something that's obvious to someone who's watched the show. So everyone knows, for example, that I Love Lucy, which came out in 1952, the episode we watched, how it sort of reifies, it maintains gender roles, traditional gender roles. That's not, excuse me, that's not something anybody's going to disagree with, right? It's pretty obvious. But on the exam, if you get that question, I'm again, because I know you don't have that much time, I'm not expecting for anything mind blowing. But think about the ways in which it's less obvious. Okay, so how does how and what sort of less obvious or unspoken ways does a show do this, right? So you might want to pick something more recent, and I've been recommending a lot of students do this for their responses because, as we saw with the show like The Big Bang Theory, they can be surprisingly, or they can be fairly traditional in surprising ways and maintain things like traditional gender roles in ways that might surprise us. Do we have to know anything about Faulty Towers? It's my least favorite show. Okay, I'm a little surprised to hear that, but that's okay. And no, you don't have to know everything. I mean, if you don't like a show, you don't have to talk about it. That's fine, and you can get away with that. But there should be at least a handful of episodes and moments, significant moments you can talk about in your answers. Can I submit my response on exam day? Yeah, I mean, There's nothing stopping you or anyone else from submitting responses or papers earlier. In fact, that makes my life a little easier so that I don't have to worry about grading everything the last week. But if you want to submit something earlier, that's fine. Yeah, the HFS, the questions will be fairly broad. And again, you can take them in different directions, interpret them how you will. They're pretty broad. Sometimes the prompt will be like one sentence. So it says, blah, 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 discuss. And so you can go in different directions. I'm not going to ask you something specific like, what is the point of ritual death in the Full House episode you watched, or nothing like that. It'll be a moment or an opportunity for you to show me what you know. Is Turnitin open for early submission? It is not, but I should do that. I didn't think anybody would be submitting this early. And if I don't do it by tomorrow, please remind me. I would like, by the way, for the responses in the papers, this is after the exam, Turnitin and hard copies as well. Can you talk a little more about The Simpsons? Because I don't get the idea. Well, The Simpsons, it covers a lot of the same ground that it's a show that's been around for so long. I mean, it's still on the air. It just recently, last month, I believe, became the longest running TV show in history, scripted TV show in history. So in many ways, it's kind of hard to generalize about that show because it's been around for so long. I mean, it's been around since before you guys were born. And just to give you an idea of how much it's changed, when it started, I was a kid. I must have been 7, 8, 9 years old when it started, and the main character was Bart for the first 2 seasons or so. And in fact, the show was scandalous to the point where people like George Bush Sr., the president who helped to liberate Kuwait from Saddam Hussein, complained about The Simpsons being a dysfunctional family. It doesn't promote family values like other family sitcoms did. And so this was, teachers would suspend students who would wear a Bart Simpson T-shirt. I remember those days. But then it changed and it became a lot more political and satirical and more about Homer, right? Bart became a secondary character, and we all came to love Homer because he amuses us. So it's and it's since then it's changed even more. So it's become, I think, more topical in some ways. But some of the things I talked about in class, it covers the one episode we looked at least, Homer's Enemy, which is in some ways not a typical episode. It covers a lot of the same ground as Seinfeld does. So we talked about how it's postmodern and it kind of lacks a center. Homer's not exactly. I mean, in many ways, he's an idiot, right? But he amuses us, and at the same time, in this particular episode, is also, yes, Layla, thank you. It's a self-conscious, like a lot of postmodern art is self-conscious, and so the episode comments on itself, kind of asking the question, yeah, how is it that Homer Simpson, this idiot who should have been killed dozens of times by now, has an amazing house and a great family and a job that pays enough to support his family. They have 2 cars, they have three kids, a house in the suburbs, and meanwhile this other guy, Frank Grimes, who works for everything in his life, and lives underneath a bowling alley, on top of another bowling alley, sort of shows how that sort of American dream, if you want to call it that, the idea breaks down, right? One important thing it also does, and I was talking to one of our classmates today about this, is that even if it's unrealistic, comedy often is unrealistic, and so think about Legally Blonde. A lot of you talked about how it's so unrealistic that it would happen, and of course it's comedy, right? As Northrop Frye said, comic endings don't strike us as realistic, but as desirable, right? And the comic universe is a just universe where people, yeah, as Layla says, a comic universe has poetic justice. People get what they deserve, right? So because Elle worked hard and she's a nice person, and we see, many times how she does this. She helps out her awkward classmates. She helps out that nail salon, what do you call it, salonist, get her dog back and all that. So she's a genuinely good person, and so she gets what she deserves. And the meanie boyfriend gets what he deserves, right? But The Simpsons flips it on its head, right, and says, no, this is not a comic universe, and that's not how life is, right? So yeah, so that sort of questions the comic universe. That particular episode of The Simpsons, anyway. I felt like I talked for a really long time, so I hope there are other questions. All right, Beast K-pop, you're welcome. Okay, any other questions? We've almost reached 47 minutes. The time goes by very quickly, but I find typically after 45 minutes to maximum 1 hour, people sort of start tuning out. Okay, Hussein, okay, I take that, I will interpret that as a thank you, I'm done, I'm gonna go relax now. You're welcome. Oh, great, I'm glad you found it helpful. Zahra asking the million dinar question. Is there anything else we should have asked or should know? Honestly, not that I can think of. There's really not much else I can say, especially since I haven't written the exam yet. So even I don't know exactly what it looks like. But whatever the final format is, I will tell you. I'll remind you some of the things to worry that you should maybe think about. Okay, great. Sharuk, yeah, actually, I think that's the episode in question, Sharuk. I didn't finish the video. I started watching it last night or the night before because it's a 20-minute video. I mean, who's got time for that, right? So I watched the first 8 minutes or so and thought, okay, this is worth watching, so I'm going to watch it again later. I think it's the Wisecrack edition. It's something about how BoJack Horseman sort of questions or subverts narrative. 15 minutes, okay, then be my guest. I have no attention span, so we're different. What's your fave sitcom of all time? It's if I had to pick one, it would probably be one that we didn't watch called Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is imagine Seinfeld plus, if you haven't seen it, imagine Seinfeld plus Peep Show. I don't have time for. Okay, I got a. What's that? I got a Viber call for the first time in a year on my phone. This always happens whenever I'm talking to students and never when I'm by myself. So yeah, Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's the co-creator of Seinfeld, Larry David. It's sort of based on him, so it's kind of this cinema verite version of Seinfeld, essentially. Oh, come on. Okay. Really, don't add any questions about Peep Show. Well, like I said, okay. Don't ask any questions about Peep Show. There won't be any specific questions that will ask you about one particular sitcom, so don't worry about that. If there's one show, if it's one show you don't like, then just focus on the other ones. Stop watching the YouTube videos that I watch. I could tell you the same thing, Shruk. I've been using YouTube a lot longer than you have, probably. Okay, do add questions about Peep Show. Like I said, it won't be. Yeah, Peep Show is a great show for so many reasons, and if you liked it, I don't need to tell you that you can watch the other episodes online. It's a great show. It's one of my favorites, probably in my top 3 or 4 sitcoms. and there's so many different things it does that other traditional sitcoms don't do. But again, if you want to use Peep Show in your answers, be my guest. But I'm not going to ask you anything specific about Peep Show, like what's the point of ritual death in the Peep Show episode or anything like that. This show is horrible. Okay, well, I disagree, but everyone's entitled to an opinion, and you don't have to remember that one. Yeah, Peep Show. I agree with El Nori. Peep Show is an easy show to write about, to write a response about. So many things to write about. Beast K-pop. I don't get the jokes. You actually raise an interesting point because first of all, it is a British show, and I think you can tell that watching something like Big Bang Theory or even Seinfeld and Peep Show or Faulty Towers is very different. The sensibility of the British is quite different from the Americans, and all of us, I think, especially in Kuwait, you grew up watching a steady diet of American TV like Friends and maybe shows like Seinfeld more than British shows. So that's one thing. And two, the British shows are a lot drier. So it does take some getting used to. And once you get used to it, I think you fall in love with it. But it is a very different type of humor. And it certainly relies a lot less on, laugh tracks and things like that. Another example is one of my favorite shows called Extras, a great example of that sort of cringeworthy comedy. It's super dry. Sometimes you wonder, why do people watch this? It's not funny, but it's just cringeworthy, right? Like you feel uncomfortable the whole time. The top related video to this one is a Jello knife video. That is interesting. I'm not sure what to think about that. Will there be a question about the laugh track? That might be one of the prompts you get. Yeah. So again, the questions you get on the final will be in part two at least will be fairly broad. So they're not going to ask you about anything specific, but you can use that your answer to show me specific examples, supporting details that you can give me. Do we need sources for the final responses? I think what you mean, or I think what El Nori, what you mean is secondary sources. The answer is no. If it's a response, you don't need one, but you can use them if you want. Can you explain the difference between single camera and multi-camera? Okay, so multi-camera uses multiple cameras, of course, and single camera uses one camera. But the best way to think about this is think about a typical American sitcom, Big Bang Theory, even Seinfeld, Cheers, Frasier, like Friends. Okay, they all had whenever they're shooting a scene, it looks the same, right? So to give an example from Friends, they always have the shots in the apartment that they always look the same. They have the shots from the cafe that they hang out in, right? Central Perk, and it always looks the same. The angles are always the same, right? And whereas a show like Peep Show, it's literally one camera kind of following people around, and the angles are rarely reproduced, right? So it looks more like a documentary style rather than like the fixed camera angles that you get in a studio. So just think, if it helps, remember, think Friends, Big Bang Theory, that's multi-camera, Peep Show, Curb Enthusiasm, The Office, what other, 30 Rock, those are all single camera sitcoms. Okay, maybe time for one more. We've reached 54 minutes, believe it or not. As I told you, the time goes by pretty quickly. Okay. Just give me one moment. Okay, merci beaucoup. Thanks, Professor. Shukran. All right. My pleasure. I'm glad you found it useful. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Okay. How much is each part worth? Okay, I'll remind you about this later, but if we have 2 parts, they'll be about 50-50. If we have 3 parts, the third part, as I mentioned, will be kind of a trivial, almost like a game for many of you. That will be worth a very small percentage. So just think terms will be 50%, and then the longer answers will be 50% as well. Arigato, okay, arigato as well. Can I compare the shows that we watched in class? Can I compare the shows that we watched with shows that we didn't watch in class? Yes, you're welcome to. If you, in your answers on your exam, if you want to do that, that's fine. But I mean, don't assume that I know the show. There's a lot of sitcoms I know, and there are some of them I've never even heard of. So definitely, don't just say an example of this happens in, Friends, right? Like, give me a specific example. Okay, Beast K-pop's done. Okay, great. Okay, let's see if there's anyone else. Any other hardcore sitcom fans or fans of comedy? Okay. Let's see who's left. It says there are 26 people left. Okay. Okay. Oh, so 26 viewers and I have 4 thumbs up. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, all right, here we go. Rax TV is being a smartass. Can we talk about the bamboo stock now? I just finished grading my Unit 110 class, their exams today, and part of it's on the bamboo stock. So as you know, in that class, we can't get enough of it. Okay. Yeah, Pokemon lover, that's fine. Layla, we should have done the YouTube thing all semester. The first time I did this, believe it or not, was I think last October, so maybe 7 or 8 months ago, for the 415, the theory class, because there was a lot of demand and students were freaking out, like, oh, what is Marx, and what is Lacan, what's a Derrida, all that stuff. Oh, hey, listen, my sister-in-law just joined us. I'm curious though, Layla, how would you see us doing the YouTube thing all semester? Ah, okay, Aziz, okay. I did not see that coming, but okay, good to know. Because the avatars I see are quite small. Funny thing is, Pokemon was really huge in the 90s when I was a kid, when I was maybe 13, and I didn't understand it then, and it disappeared, and it came back again a few years ago, and I still don't get it. So even when I was younger or as I was older. Okay, Beast K-pop seems to know it's Aziz. Okay. Okay, so any other questions about the exam or anything like that? Hmm. Yeah, Pokemon's still huge. I don't doubt it. And it was what, maybe in 2016, Hillary Clinton referred to Pokemon, or at least tried to try to get the youth vote. So she said something. She made some awful pun. When's the exam date? So as we decided, and I'll post this on Moodle, as we decided, since it's Ramadan and all that, that we will do it on this Thursday from 2 to 4 p.m. in the big lecture hall we had, B205. So I will confirm the time with our assistant tomorrow, but I did reserve it last week, so it should be 2 to 4, and in B205. Yes, this Thursday. The 24th. Otherwise, the official date and time was May 31st at 3:30 p.m. So that was the last possible time. Okay, if you have an individual conflict, come talk to me. Keep in mind that Thursday is a reading day. There aren't supposed to be any classes that day. But if you have a makeup class or something like that, yeah, yeah. So there are no classes. But I know some people do have projects due that day, or they have a makeup class or something like that for another class. So if you have an individual conflict, let me know. But inshallah, there won't be any issues. I already covered all of that, Nawaf, for the last hour, but what I will do is I will post a summary. You can watch the video again because I talk about all this stuff, but I will post a brief summary of the key points on Moodle later. After this stream ends, it'll be saved, so you guys can still watch it. And believe it or not, some people do. Okay, any final thoughts, questions, anything like that? It looks like people are... It says I have 28 viewers, but I get the impression people have tuned out, literally or figuratively. Well, my channel's not monetized or anything like that, and I rarely post stuff, but I guess it can't hurt, okay? El Nori's done, thank you, okay? Thanks for stopping by. I'm into extra credit. I think you guys know my stance on extra credit by now. I find it kind of amusing, and I'm not a huge fan. And it's often, not always, often the students who don't do the regular assignments who ask about extra credit. But doing things like that certainly won't help, won't hurt extra credit. Comment, like, subscribe. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If you like this video, comment, like, subscribe. You know, all that stuff. Subscribe to my Instagram. All that stuff. Okay, see you on Thursday, Pokemon lover. Great, okay, I'm glad you found it helpful. Exactly. Okay, Fatima, okay, great. I'm glad you liked it. Okay, maybe a few more seconds. I think I've pretty much answered everything I can answer. Great, okay, Shema, you're welcome. Okay, Zahra, thanks for stopping by. Great, that's the whole point. And one thing I will say in closing is, especially for those of you who are there in class most of the time, watching the materials, watching TV with us, and paying attention, contributing to the discussions, you know more than you think you do. Okay, it's just a matter when you get to the exam, and you have a moment to sit down and think, you will be able to gather your thoughts. You know more than you think you do. I can't say that for someone who showed up to 2 classes in the semester, let's say, but if you were there most of the time in body and in spirit, you should be okay. And I hope your mood will be good during exam too. And I hope mine will be good too. Okay, so I think that's enough for this round. So as, who was it? To the Limit 99 said, comment, like, subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.